Hello friends, welcome back to Mastering Course Management. So if you missed the last one, go check it out. We talked about knowing your game and specifically knowing distances and yardages. Today we're going to be talking about knowing your game and knowing your swing. So when it comes to knowing your swing, the biggest thing that we're going to talk about is our shot shape. So shot shape is obviously the way that you are moving the ball through the air. So some people have a little stock draw or stock fade. Some people it might be more of a hook or more of a slice. Some people claim they hit it dead straight every time. I don't believe them. Haven't seen one yet. But your shot shape is kind of your identity as a golfer and how you are going to get around managing a golf course. So shot shape is not going to be some stagnant, static thing that we just, have for one time and then just never really talk about again. This is going to be ever changing throughout your warm up, through your rounds of golf, through everything. This can even change throughout the bag. So when we talk about shot shape, something that's very important is your mid-round adjustments. So we're going to be constantly reevaluating our shot shape and constantly seeing if we need to change the way we're lined up to the ball, the way we're aimed, different things that are going to influence our shot shape. So when we talk about these mid-round adjustments, we are going to keep evaluating every single shot. We're going to have a mental kind of checklist that we go down, and we're going to see, is the shot shape the same? Is it different? How is it different? Are we turning the ball over more? Are we turning it over less? Are we turning it over a different way? All these things factor into how we aim for our next shot and how we aim when we pull that club again. So maybe you were on the range all day hitting little baby cuts, and then you get on the course, first tee, slice the ball off the tee. All right, no big deal, it happens. Second hole, we slice it again. By that third hole, we need to be expecting the slice and we need to play for the slice. We don't need to keep being stubborn and keep lining up for this little baby cut that we were hitting on the range. If the game we brought out to the course is not the same as the one on the range, let's stick with what's happening in the present. Let's not focus on what happened yesterday or this morning or whenever in the past. Focus on what's happening now. These mid-round adjustments can also take the form of different clubs having different shot shapes. So some people that I've seen, some of my students have had a certain shot shape for like the lower half of their bag, and then once they hit a certain club, it starts to get really exaggerated. That's going to happen, and that's something that we can plan for and we can adjust for on the golf course. So if we hit everything from our wedges all the way up to our 7 iron with a little cut, and then when we pull out the 6 iron and up, we start to hit a slice. That's something to keep in mind, something to adjust for when you're, choosing your club, when you're choosing different shots to be aggressive with, shots to not be too aggressive with, and just overall how you play the golf course, how you get around in your normal round of golf. So as we talk about your swing and course management and your shot shape, one of the big things we're going to talk about is a term that I'm sure most of you have heard before. Some of you probably practice this as well when you go out to play around a golf, and that is managing your misses. So when we're talking about managing misses, a lot of you probably have some of the basics down, which is you know your shot shape, you've played the course a couple times maybe, and you know that you're going to hit this, 5 yard cut, it might be. So you're going to aim 5 yards off from the green, let that cut come back to the green, and you're just going to play that all day. But as we talked about, course management, it's an ongoing process. We're constantly adjusting. So we also need to be cognizant of the other side of managing your misses, which is, the big misses, the, ball contact issues we might have, stuff like that. So a lot of golfers, they hear manage misses and they think left and right. A lot of people don't think short and long. So that's what we're going to get into here, managing your misses and balancing that with choosing your opportunities of when we're going to take advantage of scoring opportunities and when we might play to the safer side a little bit. So in my time teaching, I've gotten a lot of great but also tough to answer questions about managing misses and course management. The biggest of which are, if you're in this situation, what would you do? If you have this kind of shot, how are you going to, execute? A lot of these that are tough to answer because there are just so many variables that go into that shot. If you don't know the course, if you don't know how the green complex looks, if you don't know the elevation change, the wind, the lie, all those things on that specific day determine how we're going to play that shot. And as we talked about, it's an ongoing process. We're always evaluating, always changing how we go about managing the course. But when we're talking about course management, a lot of these have to do with short and long. a lot of golfers are really good with knowing their shot shape, with knowing left and right, how far they need to aim, how far they need to play it out. But a lot of golfers struggle when it comes to short and long. And for the most part, I see golfers that know the elevation change well, they know the wind well, but what they fail to realize is the impact of different things like your lie, the temperature outside, the club selection. That's probably the biggest one too, is the club selection. I've seen so many golfers that, I'll ask them in a playing lesson, what do you see here? What are you thinking? And they know perfectly. They're like, okay, perfect. 5 yards uphill, 3 yards of wind in the face. Not that accurate, but still, they know uphill, wind in the face. They know a perfect number to play it as, and then they just club themselves wrong. They just think that perfect round on the range, that perfect practice last week, that's how I'm going to hit this shot. When in reality, we rarely have those opportunities and we rarely have those perfect shots. So if you go back to my video on distances, you'll kind of see a little more about that. But managing misses, it's important to be cognizant of all the factors that can come into play with short and long. So let's talk about a little bit of the lie and how that's going to impact your short and long, because frankly, that's the one I see most often. So I went ahead and listed the things we just talked about with short and long. Club selection, you'll find all of that stuff in the previous episode, like I just mentioned. It's all about distance, all about clubbing yourself correctly, all that kind of stuff. So go check that out. Wind and slope, I didn't plan on really talking about these too much, but a lot of golfers I know, a lot of the students I teach, they're pretty good with wind and slope. But one thing that I will mention with wind and slope is just getting a good idea. This is going to take practice. It's just like reading the green. But once you kind of have it down, once you kind of see certain situations, it comes a lot easier to you. So if you're new to wind and slope and new to playing golf and you don't really know where to start with that, I'd just say just go out, just experiment with it. Just go out and have fun. Um, Go out, play a couple rounds of golf. Um, and if you guys really want to know more about wind and slope, how it impacts your distance, how it impacts your spin, your landing angle, all that stuff, I'll make a whole video on that if you want. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. But the main one we're going to talk about here is lie. So lie is the one that is often most overlooked or undervalued when we are out there playing golf. So let's talk about a couple situations you might find. So first of all, let's talk about fairway. So fairway, hopefully it's going to be just like the range as long as you have a good maintenance crew maintaining both the course and the range. But it's going to be your stock shot. It's not going to spin too much or too little. It's not going to overspin, underspin, and you're not really going to get many surprises out of the fairway. You might occasionally catch one really clean and fly the green or something, but for the most part, the fairway, it's what you see is what you get. You're going to get a number, you're going to adjust for wind and slope, you're going to pick your club, and you're going to just hit the shot. There's not really too much to talk about here. So with fairway, that's kind of your stock standard. Now let's talk about the rough. So the rough is going to be very situationally dependent, clearly a trend here in course management. But when we're talking about it, a general rule of thumb is with the rough, the ball is going to fly shorter but spin less. So sometimes that's a perfect 1-to-1 ratio. It cancels itself out. You see the same stock distance. Sometimes it's not quite, depending on how you contact the ball, uh, how thick the rough is. A million other things can go into play there. But when you're looking at a lie of the rough, even if you catch it perfectly clean, you can expect it to go a little bit shorter and to spin a little bit less. Now we get into bunkers, especially fairway bunkers is what we're going to talk about here. So fairway bunkers might be the most intimidating thing for the average golfer. So when you get into a fairway bunker, if you don't strike it well, obviously you're going to see the ball kind of come out with very little force, very little velocity to it. It's not going to go nearly far enough, and it's not really going to spin at all. This is kind of your chunk and run. This is kind of what you see around the greens for a lot of golfers is they kind of just splash the sand, the ball comes out and just kind of runs out. Now, if we're talking about fairway bunkers and we're making clear contact with the ball, the big thing we're going to see is the ball is going to come out and it's going to be very, very spinny. The ball is going to have a lot of spin to it. The total distance might change a little bit. It might go a little shorter. But the difference between this and the rough is this is the opposite. This one is going to check up really quick. This one's going to spin very fast, and it's not going to go nearly as far as the shot out of the rough from the same distance. And the big thing to keep in mind is when we're hitting this shot out of the bunker, we're going to definitely need to club up. With the shot out of the rough, you can sometimes get away with the same club. Sometimes you might even need to club down because it's going to run out a ton. But with the shot out of the bunker, you are really going to need to club up if you plan on hitting it clean and really taking a nice shot out of the bunker. Now, if you do plan on chunking and running it, it's going to be a little different. But most times when you're in the fairway, we're going to want a shot that's going to go, the appropriate distance. We're going to need to club up to account for that spin and to account for the ball just reacting differently off the club. Now we're going to talk about something that I'm sure most of you have heard before, and some of you probably do it. It's taking one side of the golf course away from you. So the whole principle of this is taking course management, breaking it down to its simplest level, and just making the round enjoyable for you in the easiest way possible. So when we talk about taking one side away, we're going to assume you're like 90% of the golfers that only hit the ball one direction. That might be a fade, might be a draw, might be a hook, might be a slice, but you hit the ball one way and you hit it that way consistently. Now this might not be a desirable shot shape, but we're going to stick with this one shot shape for now. We're not trying to change the golf swing. We are still making the adjustments in the round, but if you hit the ball one way and if you have that shot down, then what we're going to do is we are going to play away from all the trouble on the other side of the golf course. So if you hit the same fade, that same slice every time, we don't really have to worry about a water hazard on the left side or bunkers or whatever. So what we're going to do is we are going to just pretend like they don't exist. We're not going to aim in the middle of the fairway because there's trouble on both sides. We're going to favor that side that we hit the ball away from. This is probably the easiest thing that you can implement that will help you lower those scores and play more enjoyable golf. So if I hit a fade and if I have a water hazard on the left side, I'm going to aim at the edge of that water hazard. If I hit one straight, I'm still okay, but ideally, and most of the time, I'm going to hit that little fade. I'm going to be right in the middle of the fairway, and I'm not really going to have to worry about anything on the left side. A lot of golfers do great with the left-right stuff when they're around the green, but a lot of them fall short when they're looking at tee shots and different stuff like that. So this is just a great thing to keep in mind all around the golf course, but especially off the tee if you are looking at a lot of trouble and you know that you hit the ball one way. Now, if you hit the ball both ways, now we're getting into a little bit of a sticky situation, but hopefully if you hit the ball both ways, you have one shot that is more prevalent than the rest. And this is going to go back to those mid-round adjustments and seeing what the trends are for that day. Now, if you don't, then we might just have to take a gamble. We might just have to play away from both sides. But if you are like most of the golfers out there and you have that one shot shape, let's use that to our advantage. Let's not try to hit it dead straight. Let's embrace the shot shape that we have and let's just use it to our advantage. And a lot of the best golfers that you see do this so well. The biggest one that comes to mind is Bubba Watson. Now, if you've ever watched Bubba Watson, you know that he is a lefty that hits these huge slices. He hits it with every club in the bag. He can hit it with anything, but he hits the ball with these huge sweeping motions. Now, Bubba Watson isn't trying to change his golf swing. He's not trying to hit it dead straight because that's his bread and butter. That's what he's used to. Instead, what he does is he will line up and take these really weird lines that if you're watching on TV, you might think he's absolutely crazy. But then you watch the shot and you see the shot tracer and he's hitting these huge sweeping shots right into the green. And that's what I feel like most golfers should kind of take after and do. Now, if you claim that you hit it dead straight and everything, that's great. This doesn't really apply to you. But for most of my golfers out there, use this the next time you go out and play. Use one side golf and just see if you can avoid trouble and see the golf course in a way that you haven't seen it before. Well, that's about all I have for you for today. So if you enjoyed, like the video, comment down below those situations that you find yourself in that are troubling for you. I'm going to get out on the course and film some of these and see how we would get around these situations. So leave those in the comments below. Looking forward to reading those. As always, let's play for par.